It's Monday, May 11th, 2026. UFOs, Fort Knox, and a story I haven't been able to get out of my head. Next on the AM Update. On Sunday, Iran reportedly got back to the United States. Details, their initial reactions about the latest proposal. That one-pager we were told reportedly was being bandied about in front of negotiators late last week. Reports indicate Iran has responded to the U.S. peace proposal to end the war. Fox News reports say Iranian state media indicate their response focuses on ending the war and ensuring security through the Strait of Hormuz. No mention of Iran's nuclear program. Of course, that is a key figure, as both President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have talked about over the weekend. Here is President Trump during his interview with Sharyl Attkisson, again continuing to pound the drumbeat that Iran has to give up its nuclear material.
Well, we'll get that at some point, whatever we want. We have it surveilled. I did a thing called Space Force. And they are watching that if somebody walked in, they can tell you his name, his address, the number of his badge. No, we have that very well surveilled. If anybody got near the place, we will know about it.
So there's President Trump talking about the ongoing, really just guarding, ongoing blockade of Iran's stockpiles of enriched uranium that he's talking about there. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said much the same thing and made it clear what Israel's priorities are with this conflict.
Is the war with Iran over? And if it isn't, who will decide when it is?
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium, that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There's still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. Now, we've degraded a lot of it, but all of that is still there, and there's work to be done.
How do you envision the highly enriched uranium will be removed from Iran?
You go in and you take it out.
With what? Special forces from Israel? Special forces from the United States?
Well, I'm not going to talk about military means, but what President Trump has said to me, I want to go in there. And I think it can be done physically. That's not the problem. If you have an agreement and you go in and you take it out, why not?
So there's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, made those comments to CBS's 60 Minutes. And I just want to tell you, what you heard there from the Prime Minister might be more newsworthy than anything President Trump has said over the past 3, 4, 5 weeks now, because he is drawing a pretty clear red line that this conflict is not over until Iran gives up its full nuclear capabilities, including the enriched uranium, including the enrichment sites. He's making it pretty clear that that's his goal anyway. And I kind of think if it weren't for the Strait of Hormuz problem, we would have been, obviously would have been out there, out of the Middle East, or at least in this theater. We would have been out of there or drawn down our resources long ago. The only reason we're still over there is trying to work this thing out with the Strait, because right now, this is a worse situation overall than it was prior to the war starting back in March. If we left tomorrow, I kind of just think that Israel would be content to just keep picking off IRGC members' leadership one by one for like the next 7 years. I think it's pretty clear what they want right now is to get the nuclear material out of there, and they would probably feel pretty comfortable saying bye-bye to the United States after that. I think Israel is in this for the long haul, and I mean the long haul. And I think you hear that resolved there from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. There have been some naval skirmishes between the United States and Iran in recent days, with Iran trying to test the ceasefire, trying to draw the United States out, I think, into broader combat. The United States has fired back, but has shown restraint, prompting this weird question of Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Why are you shooting back at Iran if you're saying the ceasefire is still on?
Well, I guess, but the point is, if there's not much seizing in the firing, because we
well, you should ask that of the Iranians. Don't ask me. We didn't fire. They fired on us. My point is, if you fire at a U.S. Navy ship, what are we supposed to do? Say, oh, there's a ceasefire. We're not going to shoot down your drone. That's a stupid question.
That's a stupid question
to take. Of course we fired back at them. They were shooting at us. That's what I would expect to do. Only stupid countries don't shoot back when you're shot at.
That is a stupid question, indeed. The impetus of the question makes it sound like Iran is just like tripping around out in the strait. Just like, oh no, we just shot at a boat again. They're victims of being shot back at. That's essentially the question that was being asked. One more war-related, although not the Iran war story. President Trump announced on Truth Social over the weekend a 3-day ceasefire in the war between Russia and Ukraine, saying on Truth Social, quote, the celebration in Russia is for Victory Day, but likewise in Ukraine, because they were also a big part and factor of World War II. The ceasefire will include a suspension of all kinetic activity and also a prison swap of 1,000 prisoners from each country. Starting to see more and more reports. Sounds like maybe there's some appetite finally from Putin to maybe wind down that war. You'd think so after all these years. Let's go to this. Since we last spoke, big news, supposedly. I've never super gotten into this story. We had a couple of stories about this last week, one or two, just in passing. But we got them. The first tranche of documents from the federal government on files about unidentified anomalous or aerial phenomena. Those came out on Friday. It included newly declassified documents that have never been seen by the public before. The release of 160 documents was rolled out on a new website. Among the trove is video footage and images of tantalizing UAP sightings captured around the world. Files also contain scanned historical material about government UAP and unidentified flying object programs dating back to the 1940s and the Apollo program. It's going to take a while, of course, to go through all of these files, but some of the highlights include sightings of orbs launching orbs by federal employees in the western U.S. in 2023, a misshapen and uneven ball of light reported by the U.S. military in Syria in 2024, and a compendium of UAP reports from public sightings during the late 1940s, handwritten or produced by typewriter. Files contain accounts of UAP from the Apollo crews, including a light flash on the lunar surface during Apollo 17. So there you have it. First tranche of documents on UAPs. And basically, it's Monday morning as you're listening to this, probably. As far as I could tell when I recorded this, the world has kind of already moved on. But that was big news since we last spoke. Let's go to Los Angeles, where this guy continues to be big news. That would be Spencer Pratt. He's the Republican running for mayor of Los Angeles. I've seen this pointed out a couple of times. I think it bears repeating as well. They just had this mayoral debate last week. I think it was hosted by the local NBC affiliate. They had another debate lined up, hosted by CBS. Mayor Karen Bass, the incumbent, after the first debate last week, she announced she's not attending the next debate. Now, that could tell you that, she thinks she's so far ahead that she doesn't need to do these debates. It's only going to hurt her. Or you could read that the way I'm reading it, and I've seen other people read it. She bombed so poorly, so badly in that first debate that she can't afford to do it again. Now, there are two left-wingers running, and then there's Spencer Pratt, who was actually interviewed by Big CBS, not the local CBS affiliate, to discuss why he thinks he's getting compared with New York City's new mayor, Zoran Mamdani. Listen to this.
Many have compared you to Zoran Mamdani in the sense, your politics are obviously very, very, very different, but in the sense that you've really harnessed the power of social media to get your message out. What do you think of that comparison?
You know, the one thing I connect with is I know he promised his voters, like, the subway will be free. And I'm promising my voters the metro buses, the metro trains, they will be free from urine, feces, stabbing, attacks. So that's kind of similar. We both had free things for public transportation. But, you know, I think he connected with people because they felt like change. They wanted change. That message would never connect here because we've already been doing the socialist experiment pretty much for 6+ years, and it's failed here in Los Angeles. So I think my message is why it's resonating on social media is it's the truth. It's authentic. It's from my heart. I didn't want to be a politician. I'm standing in what happened because of failed politicians. That's why I'm here. I don't want to be, I want to go in and change LA so that this never happens to anybody. A lot of people are like, oh, he only cares about the Palisades. This isn't coming back for a long time. No, I'm fighting for other communities. This is going to happen to a lot of people in the next 4 years. There's less firefighters now than January 7th. There's 45 less firefighters. We are not prepared. Don't listen to Mayor Bass if you live in the Hollywood Hills, Sunland, Tahunga, Bel Air, the Valley. The dead brush is already growing back in the Palisades. Everyone is in danger, not to mention forget fire danger. We're not ready for a mass casualty event if there was an earthquake. We don't even have a helicopter. We don't have one Chinook that could come in and take 40 people if there was an earthquake and the freeway crashed and all these people need to be rescued. We don't have a plan for this.
Spencer Pratt, Republican running for Los Angeles mayor. And you can hear the passion in his voice. It's not as if this guy is just a social media phenomenon. He does have some support in polling. He does. I don't know if it's enough. It's nowhere near where Karen Bass. Again, if you believe polls, which I think that's a case-by-case basis at best. But that's not, I mean, you can hear the passion in his voice, particularly when it came to the wildfires, which were started by a leftist, as we came to find out. But I've heard many clips of this guy. You probably saw the commercial that he put out. Hey, this is where Karen Bass lives. Nice big mansion. Hey, this is where another LA leader lives. Big, nice mansion. Hey, this is where I live. And it's like a trailer in the middle of a burned down neighborhood. During these debates as well, Spencer Pratt, mayoral candidate in Los Angeles, he has gone there as well. On the topic of whether or not you should actually get homeless drug addicts off the street, he challenged one of his opponents at the debate who wants to just show compassion to all of these drug abusers and users.
Treatment first. I will go below the Harbor Freeway tomorrow with her, and we can find some of these people she's going to offer treatment for. She's going to get stabbed in the neck.
Yeah. My wife, a nurse, when she worked med-surg, and she dealt with a lot of addicts. Unfortunately, a lot of these people just want drugs. They don't want a place to live. They don't want rehabilitation. They just want drugs. And the sooner people are honest about that, and maybe that honest message from Spencer Pratt in Los Angeles, of all places, is starting a groundswell of resonation. I pray that's the case. Also news since we last spoke coming up after the break. Virginia Supreme Court striking down the referendum on gerrymandering, redistricting in that state. Also, Fort Knox updates and a story that I cannot get out of my head. That's coming up next. Where the gold at? I want the gold. Crichton Leprechaun trying to channel that this morning. President Trump, once again, wide-ranging interview with Sharyl Attkisson, more of which was released over the weekend. She asked him point blank about the supposed visit to Fort Knox he and Elon Musk were discussing at one point.
What happened to the audit of Fort Knox?
Which one are you talking about?
There was, I think when you first got into office, you and Elon Musk talked about auditing the gold.
Well, we wanted to go knock
there.
on the door, Fort Knox, very thick door, and to see whether or not we have any gold in there, because we'll take a look at it. It's a very interesting question, We played with that. I wonder if they left the gold in Fort Knox, because they steal a lot.
No need to really do that, though?
Well, I don't know. I think it's... I do want to go to Fort Knox sometime. I want to see if the gold is there.
What? What? President of the United States. Is it still official that that's like where we store our gold at Fort Knox? And the President of the United States is like, what audit? What are you talking about? I actually want to see if the gold is there. Yeah, I haven't gotten around to it. Man. I'm just going to chalk that up to President Trump has about 5,000 other things that are taking up his attention. He don't got no time for no gold at Fort Knox. Virginia Supreme Court on Friday striking down the state's referendum to redistrict, keeping in place the 6-5 map where it's basically, I think it's 6 Democrat districts, 5 Republican districts, whereas the new map had the Supreme Court upheld that referendum. Going to be 10 Democrat districts to 1 Republican district in Virginia. Now with all of this redistricting, and I'm telling you, this thing with redistricting has gone it's gone perfectly for Republicans. Perfectly. So Texas redraws, court mandated, actually. That's a dirty little secret leftists don't want you to know about. Texas redraws. California concocts in response to that, even though it was court drawn. It wasn't. It was court mandated, I should say. California, in retribution, redraws. So there's that. There wasn't much they could do, like what you see in Illinois, at least proposals for Illinois, where they just slice the state up into little slivers emanating from Chicago. So California was kind of the last advantage that Democrats had in redistricting, in the redistricting wars. Everything else is gone for Republicans. Virginia's map is now struck down. Doesn't mean that it's going to be 6 Republicans, 5 Democrats, or 5 Democrats, 6 Republicans in Virginia, but it does make the map a lot easier for Republicans in that state. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, that's now basically nixed. And you've got a handful of southern states redrawing. I'm still skeptical about Republicans' chances come the midterms to keep the House. We all need to be honest here, even with the good news in wins, their path got a lot easier. And I would say when there was maybe a 10% chance before that Republicans will keep the House, I'd say it's at least 50-50 now. That's a big change. Speaking English, hard. The Cook Political Report, seen by some as a gold standard. You got to, again, take polls, take forecasts one by one. If you want an idea of what the mainstream thought is kind of in normie land, they have Virginia's 4 congressional districts from going before the nixing of the redraw. They're now either all leaning or safe Republican to a toss-up. Tennessee, they did their redistricting last week. It's going from safe Democrat district, that one Democrat district in the volunteer state. That's now a safe Republican district. In Florida, the 4 districts that were redrawn all go likely Republican, 3 of them likely Republican, to now a toss-up. All from safe Democrat to Republicans. Net 2 new toss-ups in the last few weeks, 9 fewer expected Democrat districts, and 7 more expected Republican districts. Like I said, this is going exactly perfectly for Republicans. Let's go to this. How far gone, though, morally speaking, is the Democrat Party? Maryland Governor Wes Moore, who is an Obama bro, he joined the Patrick Bet David podcast. And Patrick Bet David asked him a pretty easy question. At least it should be an easy question about a very cultural hot point right now. Here's Maryland Governor Wes Moore.
Your son comes in saying he wants to transition. What do you do?
Well, first, it's my son, so I love him regardless, right? And he's always going to have my undying love. That's me, right? I want to make sure that I'm involved in understanding where he is, how he's feeling, the way he's feeling, why he thinks it's important. If this is a journey that he wants to go down, I want him to always be comfortable in his own skin. And I want him to always know that he has a partner in me to help him along that journey.
Would you advise him to wait till he's 18?
If this is how he is feeling and I feel like I'm closely tied to him, I'm not going to advise him on something that he feels is
at 14 years old, Wes?
No, I understand it. But what I'm saying is the most important thing for me is I want him to feel safe in his own skin, safe in his own decision making, but also know that at 14 years old, I want to be involved inside of that process as well.
Maryland Governor Wes Moore asked if his 14-year-old son came to him and said, "Dad, I think I'm a girl. Would you be okay with that?" No, of course, everything he just said there is a lie. Of course he would not be okay with that. Of course he wouldn't. No parent is, unless you live in Hollywood and it's like a status symbol. You're coerced into deluding yourself that this is okay to have a quote-unquote trans kid, which does not exist. But Wes Moore feels so much pressure from his own party to say the things that he just said there. That is how far gone morally they are. Forcing a guy like that to toe the line when asked about his own son doing something like this. That he feels like he has to say what you just heard him say. And here's the kicker. Wes Moore is black. The Democrat Party has devolved to the point where it puts so much pressure on its politicians, even the black men, to toe the line on the madness of gender ideology. That's just wicked and evil. That is how far gone, morally, that party is. Let's go to this. A couple of quick notes. Saw this story the other day. Church news. Baptisms in the Southern Baptist Church, that denomination. I'm sorry, the Southern Baptist Convention. Churches therein increased by 5% to well over 250,000 last year. 5 consecutive years of growth, surpassing pre-COVID levels. That's in SBC churches. That is some good news. Also, Erika Kirk, widow of the martyred Charlie Kirk, spoke at commencement for Hillsdale College over the weekend. Here's a brief snippet of that.
Charlie would often encourage people, like Dr. Arnn said, to get married young, not rushed, but young. I just want to encourage all of you, to the men, you are called to provide, you are called to lead, to anchor your families in strength and consistency. To the women, you are called to nurture, to build, to shape lives with wisdom and endurance.
There's a lot of wisdom in that, and it's Erika Kirk speaking at commencement for Hillsdale College. I'm not sure this time last year Erika Kirk saw herself giving any sort of address, especially not commencement address at a place like Hillsdale. She's doing her best to try to take up the work of her late husband. And my hat goes off to her. Finally, let's talk about this for an air analysis. Slightly acidic, mostly necessary. There's been a story that's stuck in my craw. Every now and then, there will be stories like this that I can't get out of my head. I'll be honest with you, as I get older, and I think it's particularly after I became a dad, there are certain stories, particularly involving children, I just can't do it. I can't read it. Don't want to know. And I've seen a lot. I'm completely up to my eyeballs in news stories, narratives every single day. Do it full time. Do it part time here on the side for this podcast. I'm up to my eyeballs. I've seen it all. But there are stories, particularly involving children and domestic violence together. I just can't handle. I just don't read it. I will stop reading. I will stop reading the headline. I can't handle it. And it's been that way ever since I've been a dad. I just can't handle those stories. Just can't do it. However, there was a story last week. I can't remember if we had it on AM Update or not. I'm sure you've seen it. From Seattle. Here's the blaze with this story. The brutal and senseless attack on a 77-year-old man by 2 males in downtown Seattle in April was captured on surveillance video and released to the public as police sought one of the suspects. The 2 men appear to be laughing as one rears back to punch the elderly victim with great force from behind. The victim drops to the ground, and one of the assailants pretends to kick him before pulling back at the last second. The 2 left the man bleeding on the sidewalk. Police found him with a head injury as well as a broken arm and knee. Tips from eyewitnesses led police to identify one suspect as 20-year-old Ahmed Abdullahi Osman. Osman was released after being charged with second-degree assault, but was later the subject of a $200,000 warrant from King County Superior Court. So 1, let's just take this beat by beat. They did catch the other suspect as well, by the way. Elderly man gets off of public transportation, 77 years old. From what I've read, an Army veteran as well. minding his own business, trying to go to the pharmacy. And two young men. I saw one report saying the one who did the initial attack, the one who's still at large because he was released. Get to that in a minute. His parents are from Somalia. So this might be a Somalian we're talking about. Completely unprovoked. You can tell the old guy was trying to steer out of the way. Was trying to mind his own business. Completely unprovoked. These two young men beat the snot out of him. Broke multiple bones. Head injury. Dude is still in the hospital recovering. 77 years old. That in and of itself is just senseless. It's just pure unmitigated evil. Just evil. Second B tier. They did catch up with this 29-year-old. Body cam footage showed him saying, hey, my sister or aunt or cousin or something is like a senator from Minnesota. I think he was talking about Ilhan Omar, which is not even true according to stories that I've read. But he's trying to tell the police he's got friends in high places. That was his reaction. No remorse, nothing. Nope, I've got powerful friends, don't touch me. He was released after that violent and unprovoked attack. He was released and is now on the run. So that's the story. Here's what has bothered me. When you watch the video, yes, the attack is brutal. It's pure unmitigated evil. What's bothering me, though, are the number of people who just walked by that old man, writhing in agony, on the ground, bleeds, broken bones, helpless. People just walk right by him. As evil as that unprovoked act is, I'll tell you what's civilization ending are the number of people who just walked by. Boy, there's an allegory there for a lot of things in this culture, isn't there? Baby killing. The trans issue, though, it seems like a lot of people are getting more wise to that. A lot of us just kind of keep walking on by when we see evils. A lot of people just keep walking on by when we see true victims, whether it's gender ideology, whether it's anything else. Just keep walking on by. I'm telling you, if that is the future of our country, senseless evil, and then bystanders do nothing to help the victims, it's not a pretty picture of the future. Pretty bleak one. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. You can always choose to start. Well, what do I tell my toddler or my son? He's not a toddler anymore, but my son. We can always make better choices tomorrow and just pray and act to that end. If enough people pray to that end and act to that end, things can get taken care of and turned around pretty quickly. So, don't want to end on a completely dour note. That's the optimism. Pray like it's up to God, act like it's up to you. That's the mantra if you're going to be awake and active in this world. That's going to do it for a Monday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.